You see, the biggest mistake people make when they deal with a narcissist is thinking that exposing them, calling them out, or putting them in their place will somehow bring peace. But all that does is give them more fuel, more attention, and more power. The truth is, you don't heal by shouting louder than the lies. You don't win by proving your worth to someone who was never willing to see it. The real strength is in stepping back, choosing silence over chaos, and letting God do what only He can do. Because when you take your hands off, you give Him room to move. The biggest mistake people make when dealing with a narcissist is believing that calling them out will somehow change them. Deep down, there is this urge to finally expose the truth, to show the world what this person really is, to make them feel the weight of their own manipulation. You spend so much time building the words in your mind, imagining the confrontation, picturing the moment where you finally say, "I see you for who you are." But here's the painful reality: calling out a narcissist doesn't free you, it binds you even tighter. They feed off that confrontation. They thrive on your energy, your emotion, your need for justice. The moment you speak out instead of owning their behavior, they twist it, flip it, and suddenly you're the problem. You're the one to blame, and the cycle continues. That's why the most powerful thing you can ever do is stop trying to call them out and start choosing peace over conflict. See, narcissists operate in a world built on reaction. They want to pull you into their drama, to make you dance to their tune. If you yell, they yell louder. If you expose, they lie deeper. If you try to reason, they confuse. And all of a sudden, you're drained, your spirit is heavy, and your energy is wasted on someone who was never interested in understanding you. That's the trap. Thinking that if you just explain enough, argue enough, or expose enough, then they'll finally get it. But they don't want to get it. They don't want the truth. They want control. And the more you try to call them out, the more you hand them exactly what they're craving: your attention, your energy, and your frustration. That's why stepping back is not weakness, it's wisdom. You're not surrendering the fight, you're shifting the battleground. When you stop engaging, you strip them of their supply. You remove the fuel they depend on. You stop feeding the fire, and suddenly they're left with their own emptiness. Silence can be louder than confrontation. Walking away can be stronger than words. Refusing to play their game is the most powerful move you will ever make, because in that space you stop fighting for control and start trusting God with the outcome. And this is where faith becomes more than just words. There are moments in life where you have to recognize that your voice cannot accomplish what God's hand can. Your strength, your arguments, your need to be heard, it may feel justified, but it doesn't break strongholds the way divine intervention does. You don't need to call them out because God already sees everything they've done. He knows the lies, He knows the manipulation, He knows the games. Nothing is hidden from Him. And when you let Him work, He does it in ways you could never imagine. He exposes truth in His timing. He brings justice in His way. And He restores peace to your spirit in a way no confrontation ever could. It's not easy because your flesh wants to rise up, your pride wants to fight back, and your pain wants to scream the truth. But real power is choosing restraint when everything in you wants revenge. Real faith is saying, I don't need to prove this, I don't need to expose this, I trust God to handle it. And the moment you release it, you begin to experience a freedom that confrontation could never give you. Because now, instead of being tied to their chaos, you're tied to God's peace. Instead of being drained by their games, you're filled with His strength. Instead of battling on their terms, you're resting in His promises. Think about it. Every time you tried to call them out, what did it really bring you? More arguments, more stress, more confusion. But when you stepped back, even if it hurt, you found clarity, you found strength, you found space to breathe again. And that's what God wants for you, not to be entangled in endless cycles of drama, but to rise above it, to guard your peace, and to trust Him with the parts you cannot control. Because calling them out might make you feel good for a moment, but trusting God will give you lasting freedom. And here's the truth most people don't realize. You don't need to prove to anyone what a narcissist is. Life has a way of revealing people for who they are. Their actions eventually expose them. Their patterns eventually betray them. You don't need to rush it. You don't need to force it. The truth always has a way of coming to light. And when it does, you'll be standing in peace while they're still trapped in their own deception. That's why your best weapon is not your words, it's your silence, your boundaries, and your faith. Because when you stop trying to fight their battle, you give God room to fight it for you. And His justice is always greater, His timing is always perfect, and His outcome is always final. When you understand the mindset of a narcissist, you begin to realize that every attempt you make to correct them, to call them out, or to point to the truth, only plays into their design. Their entire world is built on control, and they will use any situation to twist reality in their favor. They don't respond to truth with accountability, they respond with denial, deflection, and blame. The moment you confront them, they turn the tables so fast that suddenly you find yourself defending your character, questioning your memory, or even doubting your own sanity. That is the subtle power they hold, the power to shift blame and to make you feel like you are the problem. And when you call them out, you think you are shining a light on their darkness, but in reality they drag you deeper into it. What many people don't realize is that narcissists thrive on attention. Whether it's positive or negative, it doesn't matter to them. When you call them out, you think you're hurting them, but in truth you are feeding them. They want the chaos, they want the argument, they want the backhand. Fourth, because it keeps the spotlight on them. To a narcissist, any form of engagement means they still have control over you. Even if your words are sharp and your truth is undeniable, they will still find a way to spin it into a game where they come out looking like the victim and you come out looking like the aggressor. That's why the most powerful strategy is not to confront, but to step away, because your silence speaks louder than 1,000 arguments. When you step back, you begin to reclaim your power. You stop pouring your energy into a black hole that only drains you and leaves you exhausted. Every word you give them is like fuel, and every reaction is like oxygen. The more you fight, the stronger they become. But when you withhold your words, when you refuse to play their game, you suffocate their power over you. That is when they start to feel the emptiness of their own existence. They cannot survive without a reaction, and when you deny them that, you begin to see just how fragile they truly are. This isn't about weakness, it's about wisdom. The world teaches us that strength is found in speaking up, in defending ourselves, in making sure the truth is heard. But in situations like this, true strength is in the restraint. It takes far more courage to walk away than to engage. It takes far more strength to stay silent than to shout, and it takes far more faith to let God handle what your words could never fix. Because the truth is, no matter how clever your arguments, no matter how undeniable your evidence, you cannot make someone see what they refuse to see. You cannot force change in a heart that is hardened. You cannot create accountability in someone who thrives on avoiding it. That is not your burden to carry, and this is where the role of faith becomes the foundation of your response. When you stop trying to call them out, you are not ignoring the problem. You are handing it over to a higher authority. You are saying, this battle is not mine to fight. I don't need to prove this. I don't need to expose this. I trust God to do what only He can do. That decision frees you. It removes the weight from your shoulders and places it in the hands of the one who sees everything clearly. He knows the truth that others may not see. He knows the pain you've endured in silence. He knows the games that were played behind closed doors. And His justice is not clouded by lies, manipulation, or deceit. When you let go, you make room for God to work, and His way of dealing with people is far more effective than anything you could orchestrate. You might think that calling them out will finally bring you peace, but it never does. It only escalates the conflict and drains you more. But when you release it, when you stop trying to control the outcome, you begin to experience peace that doesn't depend on their reaction. You begin to see that your healing was never tied to their acknowledgement, their apology, or their accountability. Your healing comes from letting go and trusting that God's timing will reveal the truth in ways you never could. Life has a way of showing people for who they really are. You don't need to rush it, you don't need to force it, and you don't need to shout it from the rooftops. Time always unmasks deception. Actions always betray intentions. The same lies they used to control you will eventually expose them. The same games they played with you will eventually collapse on them. And when that happens, it won't be because you called them out. It will be because you stepped back and let God bring the truth to light. And while you wait, you begin to rebuild. You begin to pour your energy into healing instead of fighting. You start focusing on your growth, your peace, your purpose. Because the more you chase after justice with your own hands, the more you stay stuck in their shadow. But when you let go, you step back into the light. You discover that your silence is not empty, it's powerful. Your distance is not weakness, it's strength. And your decision to stop calling them out is not surrender. It's choosing to rise above the chaos and trust in something greater than yourself.